Hi, welcome back to 5th grade Green Math. I'm Linwood Fields, your Green instructor. In Lecture 12, we're going to look at division with decimal numbers. The objective is to know how to divide decimal numbers by whole numbers. This is the long division notation that you should know quite well at this point. Dividing decimal numbers by whole numbers is almost the same as dividing whole numbers by whole numbers. The major difference is that we place a decimal point in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend. Therefore, the quotient will be a decimal number. Also, in general, the remainder will also be a decimal number. In example 1, let us divide 10.5, which is a decimal number, by 6, which is a whole number. Here, 10.5 is the dividend and 6 is the divisor. So this is what the problem looks like using long division notation. Step 1, we go ahead and put a decimal point in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend. So we put the decimal point in the quotient right here. In step 2, forget about the decimal points now and just treat the dividend and divisor as whole numbers. So look at the problem at this point as 105 divided by 6. Will 6 go into 1? No, 1 is less than 6. Will 6 go into 10? It most certainly will. How many times? 6 goes into 10 one time. Place the 1 above the 0 in the dividend. In step 3, multiply the 1 and the 6. 1 times 6 is 6. Write the product under the dividend so that the rightmost digit of the product aligns with the 1 and it aligns with 1 in the quotient. So we put the product, which is 6. 1 times 6 is 6. The product is 6. We put the 6 in the column where the 1 is in the quotient. And here we add a 0 as a placeholder so that we can see that we're subtracting 60. We're going to subtract 60 from 105. Step 4, again, forget about the decimal point and subtract. 105 minus 60. 5 minus 0 is 5. 0 is less than 6, so we have to borrow 1 from the next column. So this 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. We borrowed this 1, and 1 minus 0 is 0. So 105 minus 60 is 45. Now, consider the 45. Will 6 go into 4? No. So let's consider one more digit. Let's consider the 4 and the 5 together, which is 45. Will 6 go into 45? It most certainly will, because 45 is larger than 6. How many times? 7. Okay, in step 5, we place these. Okay, 6 goes into 45 7 times. We put the 7 above the 5. Multiply 7 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. And we put the product, which is 42, under the 45. Now, because the 42 and the 45 already have the same number of digits, we don't have to pad it with any zeros. Well, we don't have to add any zeros to the 42. In step 6, subtract 42 from 45. 45 minus 42 is 3. We are finished because our last subtraction resulted in a number of 3 which is less than the divisor, 6. And we have a digit, the 7, above the rightmost digit in the dividend, the 5. So we have met the 2 requirements to be finished. This last subtraction, 3, is less than the divisor, and we have a digit above the rightmost digit in the dividend. Now we have to check our work. We multiply the divisor times the quotient, and we get 10.2. And then we add the remainder. 10.2 plus 0.3 is 10.5. Note, the remainder appears to be 3, but because the 3 is to the right of the decimal point and it is under the tenths column, the remainder is actually 0.3. So right here, we don't add 3 to 10.2, we add 0.3 to 10.2, and we get 10.5. So over here, we can basically just bring the decimal point, bring this decimal point all the way down and put it right here. And we see that again, the 3 is to the right of this 3 is to the right of the decimal point that we brought down. So this is 3/10. So we add 3/10 to 10.2. So let me go ahead and erase this. In step 2, let's divide 70.47 by 35. 70.47 is the dividend, 35 is the divisor. This is what the problem looks like in long division notation. Step 1, go ahead and put your decimal point in the quotient above the decimal point in the dividend. Step 2, forget about the decimal points and treat the dividend as a whole number. So at this point, just imagine that we are dividing 7,047 by 35. Will 35 go into 7? No. Will 35 go into 70? It most certainly will, because 70 is larger than 35. How many times? 2. Place the 2 above the 0 in the dividend. So put the 2 right here. Then multiply 2 times 35. 2 times 35 is 70. So we put the product under the dividend so that the rightmost digit in the product, the rightmost digit in 70 is 0. So that has to align up with the 2 in the quotient. And go ahead and add 2 zeros so that this number here has the same number of zeros as this number, or same number of digits. So in step 3, again, forget about the decimal point and subtract. Subtract 7,000 from 7,047. 7 minus 0 is 7. 4 minus 0 is 4. 0 minus 0 is 0. 7 minus 7 is 0. So 7,047 minus 7,000 is 47. Now we ask ourselves, will 35 go into 4? Stop. Stop. At this point, we don't ask if 35 goes into 47 because we have not placed a digit in the quotient above this 4 in the dividend. So now, since 35 goes into 4 0 times, go ahead and put a 0 above the 4 in the dividend. Now multiply 0 times 35. 0 times 35 is 0. And here we wrote 0, 0 so that we have the same number of digits as the 47. 47 has 2 digits, so we put an extra 0 here. Subtract 47 minus 0. 47 minus 0 is 47. Now, at this point, we ask ourselves, will 35 go into 47? Okay, 35 goes into 47. 35 goes into 47 one time. Put the 1 above the 7 in the dividend. Multiply 1 times 35. 1 times 35 is 35. So we put the product 35 under the 47. Subtract. 47 minus 35 is 12. We are finished because the last subtraction resulted in 12, which is less than the divisor of 35. And we have a number, which is 1, above the rightmost digit in the dividend, which is 7. Okay, let's check our work. We multiply the divisor times the quotient. 2.01 times 35 gives us 70.35. And then we add the remainder, which is 0.12. 70.35 plus the remainder of 0.12 should be equal to the dividend. Bingo, it's equal to 70.47, just like it should be. Note, the remainder appears to be 12 right here. But because the 12 is to the right of the decimal point and under the tenths and the hundredths column, the remainder is actually 0.12. So up here, when we're checking our work, we don't add 12 to 70.35. We add 0.12 to get 70.47. Again, over here, we can just bring the decimal point all the way down and put it right here. And we see that the remainder is 0.12. Let's go ahead and erase everything. Now, dividing decimals by whole numbers is still a grouping problem. Now we will show that dividing a decimal number by a whole number is still a grouping problem. We're going to divide 4.5 by 2 and show that this is still a grouping problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and do the mechanics of the problem before we start giving an explanation. So 4.5 is the dividend. 2 is the divisor. Okay, 2 goes into 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. And let's add a 0 as a placeholder. 45, and then let's subtract 40 from 45. 45 minus 40 is 5. Oops, we forgot to put the decimal point in the quotient. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we got the decimal point in the quotient. 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. And we subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. We are finished because the last subtraction resulted in 1, which is less than the divisor, which is 2. 1 is less than 2. And we have a digit in the quotient above the rightmost digit in the dividend, which is 5. Okay, so at this point, let's go ahead and bring the decimal point all the way down and put it right here so that we see that the remainder is 0.1. The remainder is 0.1. Okay, so the answer is 2.2 with a remainder of 0.1. Now let's go ahead and interpret this problem as a grouping problem. So this time, the 2 here, which is the divisor, that's the number. Okay, that's the number of groups. Okay, so we And 4.5, the dividend, is the total number of items. Okay. Okay, so, and then the quotient is the total number of, is how many items in each group. So that is how many items bear with me here. It's a little bit slow writing on the screen here with my mouse. How many items will be in each group? Okay, so again, so you can look at this problem as 4.5 divided by 2 is asking the question, if I have 4.5 total number of items, and I divide those total number of items, if I divide those total number of items into two groups, how many items are going to be in each group? We see that we're going to have 2.2 items in each group, and there's going to be 0.1 item left over. Now, 0.2 is 2/10. Okay, so 0.2 is 2. Oops, that's a little bit sloppy. That is 2/10. Now the remainder, 0.1 is equal to 1/10. So let's go ahead and draw a picture here. Okay, so in our picture, let me draw 4.5 items. Okay, 1, I'm gonna try to draw them the same size. 2, 3, 4, and I need a half of an item. So here, that's a whole item, but we only need half of it. So we're going to throw away, let me draw this line a little bit better here. Okay, so we're going to throw away this right half because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1/2 items to start with. Okay, so remember we have we're going to divide all those items into two groups. So in group number 1, let's call G1 for group 1. Group 1 is going to have, let's assign these 2 items to group 1. And then for group 2, as we see right here, it also gets, if we look at this whole number part of the quotient, the whole number part of the quotient is 2. That's why we gave group 1 2 items, and we need to do the same thing for group 2. Group 2 is going to get these 2 items. Now, this part of the answer, the 0.2, says that each group is going to get 2/10 of an item. So at this point, I'm going to use fractions So don't worry if you don't completely understand everything, because we're going to be teaching you fractions in the lectures that are coming up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this item here up into 10 parts. Okay, let's divide that item up into 10 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And each one of these parts here is 1/10, 0.1. Because as we remember, a dime, it takes 10 dimes to equal to $1. One dime is equal to 1/10 of a dollar. So we divided this last item here into 10 parts. Now the whole item is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tenths. 10 tenths is equal to 1 whole. But we didn't start with 10 tenths. We only started with half of the item. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We only had 5 of the parts to start with. So initially, we did not have the right half. We only had 1/2 of the object, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Now, in the answer here, the 2 tenths, each group is going to have 2 tenths of an item. So this group number 1 here is going to get 2 tenths of an item. So it's going to get these 2 items right here, or these 2 pieces. These 2 belong with this group. So this is 1/10. That 1/10, 2 tenths. So that's a total of 2 tenths, or 2 out of 10 parts. Now we do the same thing with group 2. Group 2 is going to get 2 of these pieces, and each piece again is 1/10. So group 2 is going to get 2 tenths. So group 2 gets 2 tenths. So group 2 has 2 items and 2 tenths of an item, just like the quotient tells us, 2 items plus 2 tenths of an item. So group 1 has 2 items plus 2 tenths of an item. And as we see right here, we have this right here represents 1/10. We have 1/10 left over. So the remainder is 1/10. The remainder is 1/10. 1/10 of an item will not be in a group. So we can see that, yes, dividing decimal numbers by whole numbers, yes, it is still a grouping problem. So let me go ahead and erase everything. Again, we're going to be covering fractions coming up in the next lectures. So I just wanted to prove to you that it was still a grouping problem. Okay, let me see. Let me go ahead and erase everything. Bear with me. I'm going almost as fast as I can. I'm not Speedy Gonzales. Where you at, Speedy Gonzales? Oh, he's nowhere to be found. Okay, we're finished with that. Okay. Okay, in summary, dividing decimal numbers by whole numbers is similar to dividing whole numbers by whole numbers. Once we put the decimal point in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend, we forget about the decimal point and proceed as if we were dividing a whole number by a whole number. And the only other difference is the remainder. We have to bring the decimal point directly down and place it in the number in the last subtraction that was less than the divisor. Here are some practice problems. And again, this is a link that has some great 5th grade math problems and activities. Thanks for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the next lecture. Have a great day.